Welcome back, traveler. It's good to see you again. Come, sit down and make yourself comfortable. The fire's warm tonight. And I think we both learned by now that conversations are always better when you're not standing by the door. Come on in. Sit. Traveler, most people who come through the Crescent Heart don't ask many questions. They just eat, they rest, they listen to a story or two, and then they continue on their journey. Some stay for a night, others stay for a week. Then there's the few who disappear for months and then suddenly they return as though they have never left. But you've always been a curious one. I noticed a look on your face earlier. You were looking around the tavern again, looking at the fireplace, looking at that old beam overhead, looking at the people sitting around the tavern. Eventually, you ask me the question, what exactly is the Crescent Heart? Well, that's a difficult question. Not because the answer is complicated, but because the answer depends on who you ask. Well, if you ask a merchant, they might just tell you this is simply a tavern. A place to eat before, the next road calls them away. If you ask a weary adventurer, they probably say it's just an inn with surprisingly comfortable beds. And then if you ask a child, they might tell you it's a magical place where strange people from strange world somehow become friends. And honestly, they wouldn't be entirely wrong. But when I think about the Crescent Heart, I always remember a story. It is a story from a very long time ago. It goes something like this. There was once a young man who spent far too much of his life walking. The sort of person who never stayed in one place for a very long. Every time he reached the end of a road, another road appeared in front of him. Every time he thought he had found what he was looking for, life just handed him another journey. He crossed many kingdoms, mountains, forests, cities so large you could spend a lifetime exploring them. He met wise kings who possessed everything a person could desire. He met farmers who possessed almost nothing at all. And at first, he thought people were easy to understand. He thought there were heroes and villains. Good people and then bad people. Simple, really. And then, the world eventually taught him otherwise. The more people he met, the more he noticed something strange. King worried about his kingdom. A merchant worrying about feeding their family. A knight worried about failing their comrades. A student worried about the future. The details changed, but the feeling didn't. They were all carrying something. And after enough years, the young man realized that everyone seemed tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes alone. The deeper kind of tired. The tired that settles quietly inside a person. The kind of tired that comes from responsibility, from grief, from expectations, from mistakes, from trying your best and still feeling as though you should have done more. And I think that's something many people understand. Perhaps even you. One evening, after a very long journey, that young man found himself sitting around the campfire. There wasn't anything special about the campfire, no ancient prophecies, no legendary treasure. Just people, a traveler, a scholar, a merchant, a soldier. They shared food, they shared stories, they laughed. And for a few hours, nobody cared who was important. Nobody cared who was rich. Nobody cared who was powerful. Nobody cared who had titles. They were simply people sitting around the fire. And that was when the young man realized something. People spend so much of their lives trying to reach somewhere else. The next promotion, the next goal, the next destination, the next chapter. And in the process, they forgot they're allowed to rest. Now, don't misunderstand me, traveler. Dreams are important. Goals are important. Moving forward is important. But even the strongest traveler needs a place to sit down every now and then. Even the bravest knights eventually moves their armor. Even the wisest scholars closes their books. Rest is not considered weakness. Rest is a part of the journey. And so that small realization stayed with the young man for a very long time. It became a thought, then an idea, then a dream. A dream of a place where weary people could simply exist for a while. A place where nobody needed to prove their worth. A place where titles mattered less than kindness. A place where someone could walk through the door carrying the weight of the world and leave carrying a little less. And eventually, the dream became the Crescent Hearth. It is not a kingdom, not an empire, not a monument, but simply a home. The funny thing is, traveler, that after all these years, people still ask me about what the Crescent Hearth is. And I always find myself giving a different answer. Perhaps that's because Crescent Hearth becomes something different for everyone who walks through its doors. But if you were to ask me tonight, I would say it's a reminder. A reminder that no matter how difficult the road becomes, no matter how far you have traveled, no matter how heavy your burdens may feel, you do not have to carry them alone. The fire will be waiting, and so will we. Until next time, traveler, stay safe. May the tavern bless you, and may the heart be with you.